Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gala Darkness video, where today I will be completing the game with the Ralts line. Now, the Ralts line I do have high hopes for, because Gardevoir is a pretty good Pokemon. Kirlia is not too bad either. Ralts would be really the only issue, I think. And that's because Ralts has 28 HP, 25 attack, 25 defense, 45 special attack, 35 special defense, and 40 speed. It gets access to mostly psychic moves, but it also gets a few normal ghost and electric type moves, which will help quite a bit for some type coverage. But the problem is that because of Ralts' low stats and the fact that it only really gets access to psychic type moves at the beginning of the game, means that it might struggle against the early game dark types. Hopefully I can get one of those tutor moves early enough to help me with those. Otherwise this is going to be a very painful run. Anyway, our Ralts has an adamant nature, which might actually be the worst nature it could have, because that raises its attack and lowers its special attack. So it's not really going to come in handy basically anywhere. So that's not great. Our Ralts has the ability Trace. It was between this and Synchronize, but I've already done a few Pokemon with the Synchronize ability, so I decided to go with Trace. And what that does is it copies the opposing Pokemon's ability. Now, in the doubles format, it can either trace one or the other Pokemon. It's kind of random who it chooses. And for its moveset, I just chose what it got off of Bulbapedia by level 10, and that is Confusion and Growl. So, let's go ahead and get right into this, and this is our first roadblock. It's this guy at Mount Battle. Usually he's not too much of a difficulty, because you can usually hit his Pokemon with a neutral move, but unfortunately Confusion isn't going to do much to Spoink. And on top of that, you might see in my moveset, I do have Mimic and Double Team. Double Team is very useful during this run, and on top of that, Mimic is going to be used to cover any type that I can't hit, really. But unfortunately, at this point, there's no way I can beat this guy. So I'm going to evolve into Kirlia, and with a evolution means better stats. So Kirlia has 38 HP, 35 attack, 35 defense, 65 special attack, 55 special defense, and 50 speed, which will hopefully help me do a good bit more damage. So here we are again, coming to the battle. I use Confusion, and it's actually able to take down the Doduo in a single hit, which is super nice. Another Confusion, and it's doing about a quarter, which is way better than what it was doing before. So, Psywave's really not doing too much damage either, so this should be a piece of cake. And actually gets a miss there. Okay, that's quite lucky, and I take it down. Okay, so now we're moving on to the rambling section of the video. I'd like to say that this was a viewer suggestion. Thank you so much for suggesting this. I'm not sure if I'm really gonna do the shoutouts, because I figure you know who you are. And also I don't like mispronouncing names all that much. Anyway, if you are liking this video, hey, leave a like down below and maybe consider subscribing. Oh, also just a real quick aside, I get Calm Mind. Very important, except it really isn't, because it's really hard to use setup moves and doubles. Anyway, oh, and I also get access to Psychic at level 26. Very, very important, because that is now a ton of damage. Anyway, if you have any other Pokemon that you'd like to see, suggest it down below, because I will definitely look into it. And I'll get into later who I think I'm going to do next. Anyway, there was a lot of training I did specifically for this battle because of the Carvanha here. It's going to be doing a ton of damage because I don't really have that high of a defense stat. And I need to be able to mimic the Thunder Shock from Magnemite. And unfortunately, this is now like the third attempt, because Magnemite just kept using Tackle, or just kept hitting me through my double teams. So yeah, this actually took quite a few attempts. And that's really the issue with Kirlia and Ralts at this point, is that it just doesn't have any better moves than a Psychic type move to actually hit Dark types. And I really thought that Carvanha was going to be the most difficult fight in this place. No, it is actually naps. Because, as you can see here, I'm just getting dismantled. Like, I'm able to take down the Rhydon in a single hit, and I'm even able to probably take down the Slackoth in a single hit, but it's just not happening with that Murkrow there. And so I decide I'm only a few levels off from evolving again. Let's go and get up to Gardevoir. And with the Gardevoir, things are going to go a lot better, and that's because Gardevoir has 68 HP, 65 attack, 65 defense, 125 special attack, 115 special defense, and 80 speed, meaning that a lot of the threats that I had issues with before are now going to be doing way less damage, and I'm actually going to be able to take them out in a single hit. So let's go right back into that battle again. So I use Double Team just like I did before, because honestly if I could just take less damage, that's way better. Psychic still takes down the Rhyhorn, obviously. Out comes the Slackoth once again. Now that is a very nice miss from Pursuit. I'm going to just steal that because it's going to be doing a decent amount of damage to Murkrow. I decided to go for Calm Mind here just to reduce the amount of damage that I'm going to be taking from Murkrow though. Goes for Astonish here. And that's doing way more damage than I thought it would. And the important thing about that is that had it not been doing as much damage as it was, I would have had to complete Mount Battle level 3 to get Shockwave, probably, to defeat that, so that's really good. Anyway, on to the boss of the area. This is Lavrina. She leads with a Love Disc and a Beautifly. I use Psychic into Beautifly, which absolutely is a one-shot because I'm already a fully evolved Pokemon and about 10 levels higher. A Tackle, not really doing too much damage. Psychic will take down the Roselia, it's part Poison type. And then out comes her strongest Pokemon, which is a Delcatty, and her Shadow Pokemon as well. So anytime it hits me, it's going to be doing super effective damage. And that's really if it hits me, because Psychic takes it down in a single hit. Yeah, okay, that's kind of expected. And I should be able to just take down the Love Disc in a single hit as well. And that's Lavrina on the first attempt, with relative ease. So her second in command was definitely harder. Anyway, you can't have a Pokemon XD video without the obligatory Mirror B mention. Hello, Mirror B. Good to see you. Yep. Anyway, at the top of the ONBS building, I capture the Shadow Ralts, which honestly, I was considering just swapping my Ralts out for, because I thought that could be funny, but I decided not to. And that's because it's holding the Twisted Spoon item, which raises my psychic damage. I go to the Real Gam Tower to go pick up TM10 and TM17, and I'm going to teach Hidden Power right away, because honestly, I need any type of coverage I can get, as long as it's not Psychic. And I'm just going to teach that over Mimic, because whatever it is probably better than it. And we go on to the battle with Snattle. I never realized that rhymed before. Anyway, I use Psychic into Quagsire, and actually able to take it down in a single hit. And out comes his Lunatone, which is his first Shadow Pokemon. Lantern uses Shockwave, and it does very little actually. Okay, that's really nice. I go for a Psychic into Lunatone, because even though it's not very effective damage, it still probably is my best damage because it's 95 base power. Anyway, it sets up Shadow Sky, and it's going to rain down Fruity Pebbles on everything. I take down the Lunatone, and out comes Castform. Now this thing, I don't think should really be that big of a deal. So I decide, well, after the Fruity Pebbles, of course, I decide to take down the Lantern, because Lantern's at least getting stab on Shockwave, so it's probably going to do more damage than the Castform would. Out comes Metang. Okay, Weather Ball does. Actually, that's way more than the Lantern was doing. Okay, that's kind of surprising. At this point, I'm getting pretty low on health. Okay, well, I'll take down the Castform, because maybe the Metang will just use Confusion. Oh, right, it's got Metal Claw. Okay, well, that's not exactly great. But I survive. Okay, well, if I can just take it down in a single hit. And I didn't mention this, but my hidden power type is Electric. Okay, well, that's not great. Oh, I survive. Okay, I get confused, but the Shadowy Aura faded away. Okay. One more hidden power. And I hit myself in confusion. Okay, well, not great. Anyway, I decided to just speed up this second attempt because honestly, nothing really changed other than I decided to keep the Lantern alive for longer because it's not doing as much damage as the Cast Form was doing. So nothing really special happens during this fight. I take down the Lunatone just as before. Now, the Lantern, interestingly, starts going for Facade. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just because I'm more specially defensive, but I don't know. Either that or it's because it's taking chip damage from the Fruity Pebbles. Anyway, Metang still isn't a one-shot with the Hidden Power Electric. Metal Claw comes out, Shadowy Aura, I get pretty low on health. I'm able to take down the Metang. Fruity Pebbles end this turn, so I don't get fainted, and the Psychic takes down the Lantern. So not too bad, a second attempt. Oh, and I decide not to learn Future Sight. Anyway, moving right along, I go to the next boss in the game, which is Gonzap. His whole gimmick is Hyper Beam, but not before first turn using Fake Out. And the Electrode can use quite a few moves. It decides to use Sonic Boom this turn, only taking 20 damage off of me. But it can also use Spark, which is definitely the worst thing it could go for because it would paralyze me, potentially. Anyway, I'm able to take it down in a single hit. Out comes Vileplume, which will definitely go down in a single hit. And the Nuzleaf from here on out will just use Hyper Beam, so it's no longer an issue. So I'm able to take down the Vileplume. And then out comes his next Pokemon, which is a Whiscash. Now, maybe I might be able to take down Whiscash. It is quite defensive. And I am. Okay, well that's pretty good. Out comes Skarmory. Another Hyper Beam. And, you know, I came into this fight kind of damaged, and I'm not really taking any damage. This probably will be a first try attempt. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Now, Nuzleaf is part Dark type, so I do have to use the weaker Hidden Power here. But it's not really a threat anyway, so I'm able to take it down this turn and beat Gonzap first try. So, definitely pretty good. Anyway, moving up this tower, I decide to go ahead and teach my TMs for Thunderbolt, which is just going to replace Hidden Power because it's basically the same but better. And I'm going to teach Shadow Ball, and this will stay on me for the rest of the playthrough. For one, it hits Shedinja, which is definitely helpful here. And for two, it'll hit other Psychic types that I can't really take down in a single hit anyway. So I go for Thunderbolt against Gorigan. And take down his Celio first turn. This guy's whole gimmick is Earthquake and Protect. So anytime a Pokemon is out with Earthquake, the opposite Pokemon will use Protect. Unless it doesn't have Protect, but that's very situational because that's only Celio and Slowking, and his last two Shadow Pokemon. Anyway, this fight isn't really all that interesting until the end because everything's just a one-shot. And it's not until we come to Primeape here, because now I'm in a situation where neither of them will use Protect, and Ursaring definitely won't use Earthquake. So I go for Psychic on the Primeape, because it's definitely a scarier threat, I think. Out comes Hypno. Ursaring uses Slash, which is doing a little bit of damage, but I am healing it up because of leftovers. I go for Calm Mind here, and that was actually on accident. I meant to go for Shadow Ball. I just moved around my moves in the list so that was just a misclick, because I was used to it being down below. Anyway, I go for Shadow Ball this turn, and it's doing all of Hypno's health. Okay, well that's a bit surprising. I thought Hypno might survive one. And then a Psychic should be able to take down the Ursaring. Yep, and just like that, Gorigan went down first try. Now I will say Gardevoir did fantastic during the mid-game. Definitely some really good times, but unfortunately that early game is really holding it back, so hopefully it can do just as well in the end game and end up with a really good time, maybe. Anyway, before it can get there, it has to first go through the rematch against Lavrina. Now Lavrina starts with a Gardevoir herself and a Gorbis. Now because the Gorbis is the opposite gender, I do need to take it down first, because otherwise it will use Attract against me, and at that point I'm basically trying to win on coin flips, which isn't really worth it most of the time. I go and use Shadow Ball against the Gardevoir to take it down, because I really don't want to get frozen. And I don't think getting Leech Seeded or Attracted would really hurt too much at this point. Okay, a Leech Seed. Honestly, probably better that way. But it will definitely use Attract this turn, so I need to take it down. And then out comes her last Pokemon, a Shadow Altaria. Now this thing really isn't that big of a threat, I don't think anyway, because it's not going to be doing a ton of damage, and that's not good. Okay, well now I'm confused. And Leech Seeded. Okay, well that's not really the end of the world, unless I can... Okay, I take down the Farfetch'd. That's pretty good. Okay, this should be pretty easy. Shadow Break's doing a little bit of damage, not too bad. Okay, but I am getting sapped to health a decent amount. Okay, just need to Psychic. Okay, that's not good. Okay. And that's not good. And that's definitely not good. Okay, well, as long as Psychic can one-shot it... Yeah, I snap out of confusion, that's really good. Psychic does... just a little too little. Okay, well, that's gonna need a second attempt. And here I am back at the second attempt, and basically the only real change to the strategy is I'm risking Freeze Chance from the Gardevoir. It's not preferable, but I guess apparently it's better than what I had before. So, I take down the Farfetch'd. Out comes Altaria. I will actually take down the Gardevoir this turn, because any more chances with it is definitely a risk. And now I use 2 Psychics to take down the Altaria. And that would be Lavrina's second attempt, which isn't too bad. And at the top of the mountain, we move on to Snattle once again. He leads with a Quagsire and a Metang. Psychic should be able to take down the Quagsire in a single hit. And I actually traced Water Absorb, which isn't useful in this fight, but maybe could have been if the Quagsire for some reason was locked into Waterfall. Anyway, let's see how much Thunderbolt does. And it's actually a one-shot. Okay, that's really good. Otherwise it's going to use Silver Wind on me and probably do quite a bit of damage. Out comes the Shadow Soul Rock. Metal Claw is doing a little bit of damage, but not too much. I go for Shadow Ball, which should probably be a one-shot, I think. Never mind. Okay, well, that's not good. I'm not healing anymore, unfortunately, but as long as the Metang doesn't get any more attack ups, I should be okay, I think. I go for another Shadow Ball to take down Soul Rock. And out comes Cast Form once again. Now, between the two, I think Cast Form is probably the bigger threat still, because it has Flamethrower, which could potentially do a lot of damage or burn me, which is definitely not something I want, so I decide to take it down. And then out comes his last Pokemon, which is a Shadow Starmie. Now this thing can be threatening if it outspeeds you, But I think with the level advantage I have, I think I should be able to outspeed it. A little bit of Fruity Pebble. So I go for Thunderbolt here, and I'm actually slower than it. And that did way more damage than I thought it would. Okay, well, that's not good. And a Metal Claw finishes me off. Okay, well, unfortunate, but let's go and get right back into it. This time I actually trace Mateng's Clear Body, which means that my stats can't be lowered. Not sure if that could really happen anyway, but definitely a better ability in this fight. Basically all the same as before, so there's not really too much to talk about here. I go for Shadow Ball, don't take down the Soul Rock. Now I did do a little bit of training in between to see if I could get a little bit better range on that Shadow Ball in particular, and to hopefully outspeed the Starmie. But let's see if that actually happens. Fruity Pebbles rain down. I take down the Castform once again, and then out comes Starmie. Now, I think I do have enough health to actually survive one of them if somehow I am slower. But let's hope that is the case. And it is the case. Okay, well, I'm able to take it down. And Metal Claw isn't doing enough damage to actually take me down, so I think with a Thunderbolt, I win the fight. Second attempt. Okay, well that's pretty good. Now on to the next trainer, Ardos, who is, as I always say, the hardest trainer for a special attacker. Simply because a lot of his Pokemon actually just kind of wall special attackers more so than a lot of other trainers, specifically the Snorlax at the end. And on top of that, the Alakazam can just do a lot of damage if you're more of a quick special attacker with very low defenses. Anyway, I'm able to take down this Swallow in a single hit. I take down the Kingdra in a single hit. Out comes Heracross, which is very scary. Alakazam uses Ice Punch and freezes me. Okay, well, it's not the end of the world as long as I get a pretty quick unfreeze. Thunder Punch. Rock Tomb. Lowers my speed, but honestly, I think I'm faster than most things here anyway. Psychic. Come on, unfreeze. Okay, Mega Horn. It misses. Okay, I get probably just one more chance. Come on, just unfreeze and take down the Heracross. And Mega Horn. How much does it do? Never mind, I don't get to know because it crit. So, let's just go ahead and get right back into it, because obviously that was a bit of a fluke. This time, I decide to take down the Alakazam first, just because I don't really want to risk that kind of luck again. And because, to be fair, the Swallow usually just sets up Shadow Sky on the first turn anyway, so it's not too big a threat right off the bat. And the Kingdra probably won't be spamming Hydro Pump, it'll probably be using Double Edge, because it looks at my weaker defense. So it's going to just be doing damage to itself on top of the Fruity Pebbles. And as you can see there, Double Edge. Bit of chip damage to itself. Fruity Pebbles rain down. I take a little bit of damage. It takes a little bit of damage. I decide to go for a Psychic here to take down the Heracross because it is part Fighting type. And then out comes Electabuzz. Now this thing, if it survives, is going to be a really big threat because it can do a ton of damage, or just half my health in general. So it's definitely priority number one here, even though I am taking quite a bit of damage from the Kingdra. And I'm able to take it down. Okay, well, out comes Snorlax, who, on top of just being specially tanky and having one of the strongest moves in the game, Shadow End, has a Leftovers equipped. So it's going to be able to heal off damage that I do. So I decide to go for Psychic here because it is my strongest attack, and it's doing about half. And because of that special defense drop, I think I might actually be able to take it down in one more hit. And it misses the 50-50. Leftovers. I go for Psychic again. And it wasn't just a range. Okay, I take down the Snorlax. Another Double Edge, not enough to take me down. And with Kingdra being so low, I should be able to take it down. So, second attempt on possibly the hardest trainer. Huh. Okay, well, let's go and move right along to Gorigan once again. Now, his strategy really hasn't changed, just the Pokemon have. I go for Thunderbolt first turn to take down the Slowking, because Ursaring will just use Protect as it did. Slowking goes down. And then out comes Aggron. Now this thing might actually be a threat, because I don't really have anything to hit it for super effective damage. Best thing I got is Thunderbolt for neutral damage. The Ursaring goes down. Out comes Walrein. Iron Tail's doing a decent chunk to me, about a 5-shot, but I heal up some of that damage. Thunderbolt should be able to take down the Walrein though. Which it does, so that's quite helpful. And then, as I always have to say to myself, Poliwrath is a fighting type. Because I just forgot one time and made a battle way harder than it had to be. So it is now stuck in my mind forever. Out comes the Mr. Mime. Another Iron Tail hits, doing substantial damage. Now, I decided to go for Thunderbolt here because Psychic is resisted, but maybe that's not the correct choice because it actually survives. Maybe I should have just gone for Shadow Ball, but we'll never know because I take it down here, and Aggron hits an Iron Tail, doesn't get a crit though, and I think a Thunderbolt should be able to take it down, maybe? And it does. Okay, well that's Gorigan first attempt. So, this is going swimmingly. Now, right near the end of the game here, I decide to go ahead and teach Protect over Calm Mind, simply because the Pokemon from here on out get really hard to deal with, so I am not going to have a lot of turns to actually set up Calm Mind. And we go to Eldes next. He leads with a Manectric and a Ninjask. The Manectric has Static, but it shouldn't really come into play because I'm a special attacker. But the Ninjask has Silver Wind, which is going to be very important. I go for Psychic to take down the Manectric, because it'll set up Shadow Sky on the first turn, which isn't preferable. Out comes the Salamence. This thing is actually very dangerous, because it's going to be doing a ton of damage when it hits me. And I actually traced the speed boost from Ninjask, so I'm going to be faster than everything else except the Ninjask, which is kind of funny. I decide to Protect here to waste a turn of Silver Wind. And another Silver one comes out, taking me down to half. Hopefully a Psychic's able to take down the Salamence. It is not. Shadow Rush takes me to about a quarter of my whole health. Okay. I go for Protect this turn. Ninjask uses Silver Wind. And at this point, it's only got one Silver Wind left, so I decide to gamble here. Now, it's only a 50% chance that Protect actually works, so it was a very high-risk gamble. But also, it's not too hard to get back to this fight, so I think a second attempt would be pretty easy to come back to. So anyway, I take down the Salamence, and from this point on, the Ninjask really isn't a threat, because it's just going to be using Protect and then Aerial Ace every turn, so I can just alternate attacking and protecting. So I go for Psychic here, take down the Flygon. And it takes it down in a single hit. Very nice. Another Protect on this turn. And the Shadow Marowak right here would definitely be a threat if I weren't sure that I would one-shot it, because it has the Bone Club item, so it's going to double its attack stat, so it's going to be doing a ton of damage. But luckily, I know I can one-shot it with a Psychic because it's got pretty low special defense. And then out comes the real threat of this battle. Well, maybe. It's Lapras. Depending on how much damage it does. Now, I decide, because it's going to set up Shadow Sky on the first turn, to take down the Ninjask now, just so it's not going to be a nuisance later. Shadow Sky comes out. So now I'm going to be peppered by the Fruity Pebbles and not really able to heal. I go for Thunderbolt to see how much it does. And it's actually a one-shot. Okay, well that was the first attempt on Eldes. Of course, before you can get to the final boss of the game, you have to fight the big box legendary, Shadowlugia. And honestly, I'm not really thinking it's going to be doing that much. Okay, well, I thought it'd do more damage than that. That's a little scary, and that actually did a ton of damage. So I go for Protect this turn to heal up just a little bit more before I go into the final battle. And it being a two-shot is a little worrying because I thought it would definitely go down in a single hit, or at least do more damage than that. Anyway, on to the final battle against Greevil. He leads with a Rhydon and a Moltres. And on this first turn, I'm definitely just going to use Protect, because I need to heal up a little bit more. The abilities of these two are Lightning Rod and Pressure, which both really aren't useful as abilities in this fight because neither of them affect anything, so it doesn't really matter who I trace. I do need to take down the Rhydon first, that way I can actually use Thunderbolt against the Moltres. To take it down, I go for Protect this turn just to heal up a little bit more health. And the Executor is basically just going to spam Shadow End, which is the 50-50 move on whether or not it hits, so a bit of gambling is always involved in this final fight. Out comes the Tauros. It has the Intimidate ability, but unfortunately I can't actually trace that. I go for Psychic to take it out because, honestly, it doesn't really matter. I think I'd rather deal with the Executor. Out comes Articuno. Now, with any luck, this thing will actually be a one-shot. But to get a little bit more health, I decide to Protect this turn. And it actually goes for Shadow Sky. So, it was a wasted turn, but that's alright, I think. I go for Thunderbolt. See how much damage it's doing, and it's not a one-shot. Okay, well, I can probably still finish this. Oh. Oh. Okay, well that's definitely unfortunate. Okay, well maybe just a few more levels. So, with a few more levels, and no, this isn't the finishing run, but I just want to show how sad this is. I got so close and got crit. Anyway, on to the actual final battle. I go for Psychic onto the Rhydon, just as before. And basically the start of this whole thing is going to be basically the same as you saw before. Now this did take me, I think, 7 attempts. Which is kind of surprising because the first one went so well. But that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Executor is surprisingly lucky. There were multiple attempts where the Executor just would not miss a Shadow End. And they are 50-50s. I think I got 5 in a row that I lost on one of the attempts. Which is quite unlucky. This one I got the best thing that I could. And I wasted it because I went for Shadow Ball here thinking it could take down the Executor, and it didn't. So that's a bit unfortunate. I'm just lucky it lost a second one in a row. And on top of that, that gamble with the first Executor miss, I did not win until this attempt. So that just goes to show just how unlucky I was getting. Anyway, Shadow Hold comes out because the Tauros really doesn't attack until the 3rd turn most of the time. Unless I'm low enough health to actually bother doing that. I decided to go for Protect here just to stall out some turns of Shadow Sky. And I decide to go for Thunderbolt, and hopefully I can one-shot it now. Which I do. And out comes Zapdos. Now this thing is actually probably the biggest threat on its team, specifically because it is neutral to all of my moves, so I'm not going to do super effective damage, so it is going to be, at minimum, a 2-shot. So it does have the chance to paralyze me or just get big damage off, because it does quite a lot of damage. Anyway, I decided to take down the Tauros first, simply because it doing extra damage definitely won't help. Shadow Bolt comes out, and it does about 30 damage or so. So more than I can heal off, but definitely sustainable. Another Shadow Bolt. No crit and no paralysis. And with that, I beat the game. But not before my Gardevoir decides to crit it when it's at very, very low HP. On my behalf, of course, because we don't take that kind of nonsense. Anyway, with that, we beat the game with Gardevoir, Kirlia, and Ralts. Now, things I will say about this run is definitely a lot of issues throughout the game. Specifically, Ralts and Kirlia. The fact that they only get Confusion until Hidden Power in this game means that the early game is atrocious because of the Dark types. I had to over-level to such an extent, and on top of that, Ralts just is really slow and really frail. Kirlia's only slightly better, honestly. But anyway, I think Gardevoir was definitely the thing that made the line what it is. Otherwise, I think this could have been a really bad run. Anyway, on to where I'd place it in the tier list, and I think it's actually pretty cut and dry. And that being, it is a B tier. Pretty obviously. It's ever so slightly better than Raichu's line in basically every way, but it's ever so slightly worse than Mightyena in basically every way. So it really does just kind of fit in that perfect middle area. And honestly, I think Gardevoir alone, with a better nature, probably could have been an A-tier Pokemon. But with the whole line, I think the lopsided value of Gardevoir definitely brings the whole thing down. So, with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and thank you so much for watching. Like I said before, if you'd like to give me Pokemon suggestions down below, I'll happily take them. And if you like this video, like it, maybe subscribe, and leave a comment if you'd just like to say anything. I'll probably be doing Tangela next video, because he's kind of a funny guy. Anyway, bye.